So the talk today is Journey to the Center of Yourself. And our YOUers just came back a couple of weeks ago from their fall rally. And that was the theme of the rally, Journey to the Center of Yourself. And I thought, well, let's just make it, since it's Fifth Sunday and you're going to be here, let's make it the theme of our service today. And so I did some investigation and went looking at what is the self? What is the meaning of self? And what parts of the self are truly who I am, and what parts of the self are not who I am? And as I investigated, I found a couple of lines I just thought we'd start with a lightheartedness that really I resonated with from myself. You know, I'm a little bit CDO. It's a lot like OCD, but it's in alphabetical order the way it's supposed to be. You know, I used to think I was indecisive, but now, I'm not so sure. Always remember that you are a unique individual, just like everybody else. I want to join the Optimist Club, but they probably won't accept me. Now, this one's a little harder to catch. There are 3 types of people in this world: those that can count and those that can't. Oh, you're a little quicker than the first service, a little more awake. I tried to be patient once, but it took way too long. And this is my personal favorite, Stephen Wright joke. I went to a bookstore and I asked the salesperson where was the self-help section. And she said if she told me, it would defeat the purpose. And then finally, and the foundation of what I'm going to say today, is this paradoxical statement. If I thought less about myself, I would think more about myself. And if I thought more about myself, I would think less about myself. So we're going to explore that we are human beings and we are spiritual beings. And the human part of us, I'm going to call the little s self. Little s self. The spiritual part of us is what I'm going to be dealing with most today. And that is what I call my big S self. I want to make sure you understood that, the big S self. We only lost 4 people first service that didn't like that joke. But I want you to, in fact, give me 2 thumbs up and say, I know who my big S self is. And then when you're out speaking those words out in the community, you tell them, I go to Unity North, and we're all about our big S self. So I began to peel the layers that we have upon the big S, the capital S self, the divine essence of who we are. We have layers and layers of adulthood, of things that have happened, experiences that we have placed upon that spiritual truth that are hiding that big S self. So I want to begin by exploring what we are not in the little s realm. I am not my job. I am not my roles. Neither are you, or your titles, or your responsibilities. That's what you do. It's not what you are. I'm not my bank account. I am not my body. I am not what I have. My car, my house, my belongings, whatever it is. Those are things that I have. They are not what I am. I'm not my thoughts, because the true big S self transcends thinking and transcends the mind. I am not my feelings, my fears, my insecurities, or my doubts, because the big S self transcends feeling. I am not my experiences, my relationships. I am not my judgments or the judgments of others about me. I am not my behaviors, and I am not any one of my problems. The big S self is more. It is transcendent and above all of that minutia. The true self, our true self and your true self, is not something that needs to be fixed. I want you to hear that. You were not born imperfect. Your big S self cannot be broken. Will never be broken. The true self is not something that needs changing, because the true self is changeless. It is absolute. It is unwavering perfection. My true self is not something that cares one iota about body size or image or clothes or how much money I have or what kind of car I'm driving, because it is not concerned with anything of the material world. It does not exist in the world of matter. It exists only at a spiritual realm, the realm of cause. You see, the true self does not live, dwell, or have any knowledge of the effects of life, but it's all about causation. The one power, the one source, the one energy, the one life that is eternal and immortal. It has been since time began, the Alpha and the Omega. It is perfect, it is whole, it is complete, and it knows nothing of all the stuff of being a human being, all the distractions. But here's an idea I want to share with you, and I want you to hear. Your true self is not defined by your current belief system. Your true self will not be confined in a box of your current religion, your spiritual path, or your spiritual belief system. It's not anchored to that. Anybody here know anybody whose spiritual path stopped growing and evolving because they said, here's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and it fits nicely in my little box, and I don't have to grow anymore? That is a place of stagnation. The true self does not live in stagnation, but in a place of spiritual evolving and becoming. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, said, I reserve the right to change my mind at any given moment because my idea of God is forever expanding. And my idea and understanding of the big S self, who I am, is forever unfolding. Why would I limit it? Because there's always so much more of you, of me, of us, of the universe, and of God. So you're far greater than your belief system or your set of doctrinal theology. And when we identify ourselves with any of the things that I've mentioned here, it is anything of the temporal world, that which is fleeting, which is always changing. We have misidentified the big S self. And we have anchored ourselves in the little S self of human experience. We are identifying a misidentification with who we truly are. And what happens when we do that? Every single time, eventually, if you are identifying with what is out here, what is of the five sensory world, you're setting yourself up for suffering. Period. Because you're confining the essence of who you are. Your divine nature has now been confined and limited. And it does not live in a finite universe. It does not live in a limited universe. And that's going to eventually cause suffering. Anybody here know somebody who's got it all together? Got the car, got the house, got the bank account, got people surrounding them, praising them, friends for days. Seems like they had everything together and was miserable. I've met those people. Think, boy, I want what they have. Look at how their life is showing up. And then you spend 10 minutes with them and realize there's something missing. There's a hole that can't be filled. You know, we live in a world that encourages this misidentification, identifying us with stuff. And so what we do at Unity North is we encourage a different path. You get once a week, if you're lucky, come during the week and get maybe a couple reminders that the journey to the true self is not based out here at all. It must go within. It already is. It cannot be, it's untouched and unscathed by what's out here, but we must journey within to find that essence, to find that perfection. And that's counterintuitive to the human ego, yes? Doesn't our human ego love the stuff? Love to have all that stuff, and I feel so good when I have the stuff, and I feel so good. But the master teacher, that person that we celebrate at Christmas time, got so excited, told us, don't build the barns here on earth. Yeah, you can have that stuff, but you're going to be empty if your only value is found in the stuff of life. In the Unity North, we rise above the human condition, good, bad, or otherwise. We rise above it. We rise above the relative experience of that which is changing all the time, always changing. And by doing so, we go to the absolute truth of who I am. And I then transcend the suffering that comes with it, that comes with the attachment to what is going on the outside. The absolute realm has no place of suffering. This is the whole story of the child, the man that we celebrate. How do I overcome the world? How am I in the world, but not of this world? How can I rise above it and not let it define me? That's our job. And in that absolute realm, in that place of knowing from my big S self, I know myself separate from any human measurement of greater than and less than. If we are engaged in a living exercise of today was greater, tomorrow is less, or less yesterday and greater tomorrow, we are setting up the very suffering that we are trying to avoid. You see, I will have well-being. I will have equanimity. I will have harmony. I will have balance, whether I've got $1 million in the bank or there's 10 cents in the bank. I will have balance, peace, harmony, and love, whether you go on a date with me or you say no. Now, don't tell my wife I said that. Because that true self, that divine essence, will not be anchored and tethered to how you react. What's happening out here? That's going to cause me suffering, because then I'm putting my well-being based upon whether I have money, based upon whether you love me or not, or accept me or not. The acceptance must be a journey to the center of myself, which is very private, which is very still, which is very quiet, and has nothing to do. I free myself of a good or bad opinion of anybody. And that's hard. Human ego says, please accept me, please love me, please fill the hole in my heart. But Christmas is about knowing a deeper truth that already exists. The essence, the substance of life that is filling the hole without the external distractions. So we've talked about what it is not. Let's talk about what it is. From a unity perspective, we are light, you are life, you are love, you are the divine energy finding expression in an infinite pattern of perfection. There's nothing wrong with your big S self. Say that with me. There's nothing wrong with my big S self. We are eternal, we are immortal, expressions of the Christ, of the Atman, of the Tao, of the Buddha. Call it whatever you want. I don't care what you call it, but it is who you truly are. We are a divine idea, each and every one of us in the mind of God, existing at a place of perfection. But we have to remember it. We have to go within to remember that we are a seed of spiritual potentiality. We are the very seed of possibility of heaven. We are the very Messiah that we celebrate at Christmas. Now, we're going to get a little sacrilegious here by some of my friends' definition. This world is running, statistics show that the human race, especially us Americans, are running a low-grade depression. About 85% of us are running a low-grade depression. It is because we are externally motivated. And we're waiting around. We're waiting around for the Messiah to come, for the person to show up in my life to validate me. I'm waiting for the bank account to be full, then I will be okay. I'm waiting for that car, for that relationship, for you to behave a certain way, for my family to behave a certain way, then I will be okay. And then something or somebody will come and free me from the suffering of my human experience. What we see at Christmas time, this tree is going up, these decorations, just to remind you that you are the light of the world. You are the Messiah that you seek. Now that can be scary as hell, but it can be the most empowering thought on the planet. You are the deliverer, the very deliverer out of the minutia of the human experience, out of the pain and the darkness and whatever else happens at this human level. You are the very deliverer. Stop looking outside yourself for the deliverance. Leave the prison through your thoughts. No, not through your thoughts, because it transcends thought. Through going within, getting quiet, shutting out the outside distractions, and remembering who you are. Scripture tells it. Jewish and Christian scriptures say it. You are God's. Children of the Most High. That's from Psalms. And then Jesus says it later. I want you to hear the person we're celebrating at the holiday season says, you are God's. Don't your scriptures say that? You are God's children of the Most High. You are the Holy Spirit of life, longing for itself. The deliverer out of the prison of limited human consciousness. On this first Sunday of Advent, we're talking about hope. That gives me hope. That no matter how dark or light, difficult or easy life may be, I'm not defined by that. I am defined by who I truly am. Let's stop waiting for a Messiah to come in any form with any face on it, and let's start being the very Messiah that we know that makes this Christmas a day-to-day, moment-to-moment experience of giving birth to a greater realization of who we truly are. We have found the Messiah, and it is us. And we either live from that standpoint, from that consciousness and that truth, or we become a slave to circumstance. Anybody here ever been a slave to circumstance? Let me tell you, this week on Friday and Saturday, this tree is, we're pretty much seeing it's the end of its life. I walked in Friday, and the red poinsettias are not there by accident. They're filling all the holes that exist in that tree. And I came in this morning, and I still went right to my human self and said, we need one more strand of lights around the bottom. It's just not quite complete. And I sat here, and I was not using the most spiritual language as I was going up and down that tree, trying to make it look beautiful. God forgive me, for I have sinned. I became a slave to my circumstance, and all the well-being I had over Thanksgiving, all the joy was gone in a matter of 20 minutes of fighting with that tree, because I anchored myself in the human condition that it had to be perfect. Any Virgos in the room? I have to be perfect. The tree has to be perfect. It has to be the perfect Christmas that exploded, and it looks like Santa Claus just came in and made it all happen. I went right to my humanness. So I either overcome my ego's identification with the stuff, or I become its slave. I either overcome your opinion and your judgment of me or of anybody. Otherwise, it becomes my master, and circumstance becomes my master. Jesus says, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and he loses his very soul? I've lived there. I don't know about you. A guy that's got everything, thought, wow, everything's working, everything's great, but the hole isn't being filled. Buddhists call it the hungry ghost syndrome. Hungry ghost syndrome. I am famished. I am parched. I am ravenous to get something to fill me up, to find somebody who will fill me up and will take away the pain and the suffering of the human experience. And it's like being on this hamster wheel of suffering, because it's an endless cycle. I get a little more, it's not enough. I get a little more, it's not enough. And we are celebrating here at Christmas time. What are we celebrating? The birth of light, the birth of an understanding, the birth of the divine essence, and the remembering every year at Christmas time. Remember that I am more. I am more than this human experience. Yet the holiday we're celebrating is rampant with distractions, filled to overflowing with distractions meant only to appeal to the five sensory world. This Christmas, my invitation and my challenge is to go within, let go of some of the trappings, and become fully and completely aware of who you truly are. Take a selfie. You know, we're all about taking selfies. This holiday is an opportunity for take a selfie, an inward selfie, to remember. Every Sunday we come here and we take a selfie. We get reminded of who we truly are. Or some of us don't take a selfie. And then 5 minutes out the door, we're back into the world, and we're completely of the world. Yet we celebrate at this holiday the man who showed us how to be in it, but not of the world. And I want to share, this is the True Confessions part of the talk. This is not theory for me. What I'm talking about is absolutely not theory. I lived for probably 20 years of my life as a hungry ghost. Hungry, hungry, hungry ghost. If I just worked a little harder, then people would like me. If I gave just a little bit more, then I would be acceptable, and I would have worth, and I would have value. If I lost a little weight, or I gained a little weight, or I got more buffed up, then people would really like me. And everything in my life was based upon getting the approval of that which was outside of me. If I was just a little kinder, a little more generous, a little more compassionate, then you would like me. And there's nothing wrong with the kindness and generosity and compassion. I created a great deal of good on the planet doing that. But it didn't come back to me because it was manufactured. It was manufactured consciousness, kindness, and generosity. It was a fishing line to get something. Maybe if I'm just a little kinder to you, you will validate and fill the hole within me. Let me tell you, I made a lot of friends, and a lot of people really liked me. And I was completely and totally dying on the inside. The hungry ghost is never, ever fulfilled. True self will not ever be found in external gratification or validation. Everything in my hungry ghost syndrome was externally motivated. Charles Fillmore and St. Paul both instruct us that spiritual things must be spiritually discerned. I will never find myself through human eyes. I must find myself as a spiritual being through spiritual discernment, spiritual awareness. And if you don't have a practice, no better time than at the holiday season to get a practice of spiritually remembering who you are. And it wasn't until I stopped worrying about what mask do I need to put on today so that Bill will approve of me. What mask should I wear tomorrow so that Marilyn will fill up the hole in my heart? Or Paul, or Kathy, or Dawn. It wasn't until I gave up that horrible, depressing exercise that I began to gather spiritual insight, spiritual sight, hearing, beingness. And guess what? I was still kind. I was still generous, and I was still compassionate, but it was real. Because it was coming from a place of beingness, not a place of want. It was coming from a place of organic living, natural living and being, and not from, please rescue me from my suffering. There is a lot of pain going on in the world in Ferguson, Missouri, and we've been sending prayers and love and peace to everybody involved. And we're not going to take a stance here on what is right or wrong, but we will take a stance for love and peace. And a gentleman was interviewed, I saw on Facebook, and he had a long diatribe of what he thought was wrong with what's going on in Ferguson. And he quoted Scripture, and he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they do." And then he said, no, I want to rephrase that. "Forgive them, Father, for they don't know who they are." They don't know who they are. You can trace back all human suffering, all human war, all human pain in a place of revenge, a place of attack, a place of greater than, less than. And it looks and takes many forms. You can trace that back to one place. We have forgotten who we are. And when we remember who we are truly, when everyone and everything is consciously viewed through the lens of our authentic true self, external validation becomes meaningless. Hang tight, guys. Have a seat. We have a while yours. It's going to really rock the house. Negativity then no longer invades our mind. The ideas of revenge no longer invade the spiritual sanctuary of our mind, our heart, and our divine essence. Our bodies become healthier. When I gave up the hungry ghost living, my body became healthier. When I gave up the hungry ghost living, my relationships went to a deeper, more intimate, beautiful place. When I gave up the hungry ghost syndrome, my work became so much more meaningful because it was founded in a deep, deep place of organic and natural being. And I didn't need any Messiah outside of me to fill up the hole. When I got to the place where I said, if I think less about myself, I think a heck of a lot more about myself, my big S self. This holiday season, it is the invitation, as we are now in the first of Advent, is to think more about your big S self. And to find people, surround yourself with people who call that capital S, big S self out of you, who see it, who know it, who claim it, who don't allow you to play small.